Hello, I'm Dale Yurton, and welcome to a brand new study on a no-so salvation. How we can have the assurance we are truly saved. This is the letter that John, the beloved apostle, John, the disciple of Jesus Christ, writes to us, as we call it in our Bible, the book of 1 John. And we want to look at the assurances that he gives, because people struggle with this. How can we know for sure? So John writes us a letter with that purpose of assuring us of our salvation. I want to break this into three main parts. In this first lesson, I'm calling John the Apostle of Love. And the first part that I want to talk about in this Apostle of Love, the book of 1 John, is let's talk about the man John himself. He's one of the first disciples of Jesus Christ, one of the first four that Jesus called. Out of those four, three of them became his closest friends. John was the son of a fisherman by the name of Zebedee. He had another brother. He was the younger brother of James. So when you read about Peter, James, and John, that's who we're talking about. John, the younger brother of James. Now, I'll give you the scripture reference for this in Matthew, the 4th chapter, and verse 21. Jesus saw two other brothers, James, the son of Zebedee, and John, his brother, in a boat with Zebedee, their father. They were mending their nets. That's quite significant, because God is going to use them as net menders many times in his ministry. Whereas Peter and Andrew, they were brothers as well. They were casting their nets, the scripture said. So this is the emphasis. He's a pastor. He's a peacemaker. He mends the nets. Now, their personalities is unique. Jesus nicknames them the sons of thunder. And the reason was because they had a quick temper. Quick temper. There's a couple of references in the scripture that shows us this. For instance, in Luke, the 9th chapter, verses 49 and 50, John answered and said, Master, speaking to Jesus, we saw someone casting out demons in your name, and we forbade him because he does not follow with us. But Jesus said to him, do not forbid him, for he who is not against us is on our side. Now that's very typical of John speaking up in defense of Jesus. And then something else I noticed in studying the Gospels is James and John were prejudiced against Samaritans. We find that, this is later in Jesus' ministry, 3 years that he was going up to Jerusalem. This was the 3rd year. And Luke, the 9th chapter, verses 52 through 56, is talking about the disciples with Jesus. And as they went, they entered a village of the Samaritans to prepare for him, for Jesus. But they did not receive him, because his face was set for the journey to Jerusalem. And when his disciples, James and John, saw this, they said, talking to Jesus, Lord, do you want us to command fire to come down from heaven and consume them, just as Elijah did? And Jesus turns and rebukes them and said, you do not know what manner of spirit you are of. For the Son of Man did not come to destroy men's lives, but to save them. And they went to another village. Now, it's humorous, because like you and I, we try to use everything to prove that we are right, to our advantage. And so, do you want us to call fire down from heaven like Elijah did? It's obvious they like that story about calling fire down, because they don't like Samaritans. Samaritans, no, they don't receive Jesus because he's going to Jerusalem. That's with the Jews. That's at the temple. Now, why would God use someone that's prejudiced? Well, the truth is, God uses imperfect people because that is all that he has. He doesn't have any perfect people to work with. All he has is people like James and John. Thank God their story is in the Bible and that we see these things that don't paint them in a good picture. That doesn't make them look good. It shows the prejudice. It shows their anger. It shows that they're not perfect. But Jesus changes them. And one of the amazing stories about John is he's the only disciple that stood at the foot of the cross. None of the rest can say that, but John did. And it's after the crucifixion that John faithfully cared for Mary, the mother of Jesus. That is very significant. In fact, this story comes from the crucifixion in John the 19th chapter, verses 26 and 27. Jesus is hanging on the cross, and when Jesus therefore saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing by, he said to his mother, "Woman, behold your son." Then he said to the disciple, "Behold your mother." And from that hour, that disciple took her to his own home. Well, that is very significant. I make the statement, be careful to whom you give your mother to. But it was Jesus' responsibility, being the oldest son of Mary. It was Jesus' responsibility to see that she was cared for. Obviously, Joseph, his stepfather, is no longer in the picture. We consider him dead because he's just not there. But Mary, Jesus takes care of his mother. To whom did he send her home with? With John. Thank God for John. What a transformation within his life. Now, church tradition, this is not what the Bible said, but church tradition says that later in his life, John became the bishop of Ephesus until his death in AD 100. That is probably very accurate because there's nothing in the Bible that contradicts that, and there's different things in history that give their support to this belief. So I tend to believe that is accurate, that is very true, that he becomes the bishop over the church in Ephesus. And so this is the man that we're going to follow his life, and we're going to look at him and see what God did with this son of thunder, that he transforms him into the apostle of love. Now, the second thing to talk about this message is the message of John. What John gave to us. Actually, John was a good writer. 20% of the New Testament was written by John. I'm talking about in volume. And there's 5 books in the New Testament that they give credit to John as the author. The Gospel of John, for instance, the story of Jesus Christ. He gives us insights and understandings of Jesus that none of the other apostles gave us in their Gospels. Then there's 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John. And we're going to be looking at the story here, 1st John. And finally, the Revelation, the only book that is devoted to prophecy in the New Testament. John wrote all 5 of those books. As I said, 20%, 1/5 of the New Testament was written by John. Now, the book of 1 John, as I said, it comes out of Ephesus. It was written in approximately 90 AD. It was when he was in Ephesus before they exiled him to Patmos, and which was a prison island. They put him there, but later he was released and returned back to Ephesus again, where he died approximately 100 AD. So it's written there. I've been at Ephesus several times in my travels around the world, and it's always an amazing place to see the influence that Christianity had upon this amazing city. In fact, it was considered to be the largest church in all of the Roman Empire. They say 100,000 people followed Jesus, were Christians at Ephesus. That's amazing. That's an amazing thing. John was there. Now, the thing that made it so significant is because John is the last of Jesus' original 12 apostles. He's the last one. All the others have already died. They've deceased. John was still alive. And he takes that very seriously because false doctrine about the life of Jesus was gaining popularity. And so as an eyewitness, John was setting the record straight. He is showing how these false doctrines were not true. And he would give them the reasons. I was there. I beheld him. I touched him. I listened to him. John can say that because he was the last remaining of the 12 apostles. In the book of 1 John, the first chapter, verses 1, 2, and 3, John writes, that which was from the beginning, he's talking about Jesus, that which was from the beginning, which we have heard, which we have seen with our eyes, which we have looked upon, and our hands have handled, concerning the word of life. The life was manifested, and we have seen and bear witness and declare to you that eternal life which was with the Father and was manifest to us. That which we have seen and heard, we declare to you, that you also may have fellowship with us. And truly, our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son, Jesus Christ. Do you hear his heart? Do you see what he's saying? I was there. I'm telling you the truth. I have a right to talk about it because I was right there by his side. Now, if you're interested more in doing a study just on 1 John verses 1, then go to my website, daleyurton.com, and click on the English lessons and look for lesson number 3 of How Then Shall We Live. If you'll do that, you'll find I do an entire message just on 1 John 1 and 1. Now, John is concerned about this problem of false teaching. He sees it rising in popularity, and this is the way it still is today. You get smooth talkers. You get people that, they're very charismatic, and there's people attracted to them, and they like what they're hearing, and so they follow them. That's one of the dangers of a false teacher that's charismatic. People will believe the lie just because of the charisma. That's dangerous. John is going to set the record straight. Now, he has this unique position because he was the disciple that was known for his special relationship with Jesus. And I say that because I know there are people that think that he's boasting and bragging. He's just telling the truth, but he's trying to do it modestly. 5 times in the Gospel of John, John writes that he was the disciple whom Jesus loved. 5 times he says it. In John 13, 23, John 19 and 26, I read that one to you previously. In John 20, verse 2, in John 21, verse 7, and again in verse 20. He uses this phrase, the disciple whom Jesus loved. Let me show you one. In John 19 and 26, when Jesus therefore saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing by. John is testifying, I was there. But he's doing it in a modest way. He's speaking of, this is why I have the right to talk about this. I was there. I'm an eyewitness of this. And of course today, and even in the day that John was writing in AD 90, nobody else could say that. Because all the other original apostles, all 11 of them, are gone. Only John remains. And so he realizes it's his responsibility to correct the false teaching about Jesus, to confirm our faith in Christ. Thank God for John. It's one of the things I will mention to those of you in leadership. Do you understand that God gives us is time? And some people just don't get as many years as others. Now you can take that up with God when you see him face to face, and if you feel like you're getting shortchanged on your years. But those that receive more years, they have the responsibility that John had. I mean, I look at my life and I realize I've been preaching for 65 years at the point of this message, and that's longer than most people have been alive. And yet I've been there. I was there as a boy. I saw it. I experienced it. I have a responsibility to tell a generation that was not there what happened. And that is exactly what John is doing. Now, looking at the end of 1 John, the 5th chapter and verse 13, he gives us the reason why he's writing this letter. Listen to his words. That you may know that you have eternal life, and that you may continue to believe in the name of the Son of God. John tells us very clearly, this is the purpose of this letter. Oh yes, I give you a lot of other revelation, more insight about Jesus, but this is my purpose, my intent is so that you may know that you have eternal life. Please listen to me, because I know there are even preachers that will tell you nobody knows until they stand before God whether their name's in the book of life. That is not true. And this is what John is addressing here, very much to the point. I'm writing this to you so that you may know that you have eternal life. You're not guessing about this. No, this is a no-so salvation. Thank God for John. Thank God for his message. Thank God that he gave us this letter so that you and I today can know for sure that we are truly saved. Now, the third thing that I would like to address is what I'm going to call the method. The method, his style of writing. I point out, first of all, John is an old man. He's approximately 90 years of age. He's writing with the wisdom, the authority, and the affection of a father. Now, to make this clear to you, his book is unique to the New Testament. What his book reminds us of is the wisdom literature of the Old Testament, like the book of Proverbs, the book of Ecclesiastes. Their style of writing in this wisdom literature is what we call couplet. That's the way John is writing. He wrote in a couplet style of the book of Proverbs. The book of Proverbs would make a statement about light and then darkness. It would make a statement about life and then death, comparing and contrasting the two with each other. That's the way John does in the book of 1 John. There is no other book in the New Testament that uses this style. It's totally unique with the Apostle John. The only book that we have. Now, one of the reasons he's doing it is I'm there. I saw it. He's giving us wise counsel and advice. So if we were saying if we have a wisdom book of the New Testament, it would be the book of 1 John. Now, I will contrast this with the writings of the Apostle Paul. Paul wrote more of the New Testament than anyone else. But the Apostle Paul writes like a lawyer. He's reasoning with us to convince us why we should believe. And he was very good. Oh, there are still law schools today that study the book of Romans just as how to defend your case, how to argue what you believe. That's the Apostle Paul. He's like a lawyer that's writing to us. John doesn't write to us like that. No. John's style, he writes as with the authority of someone that knew Jesus personally. He's writing like a father. He's an old man, but he says, when I was young, and we believe he was actually less than 30 years of age, probably closer to 20 years of age. He was a very young man, considered to be the youngest, and that, of course, is simply the conclusion because he lived longer than any of the rest, but it's probably true. He was probably the youngest of the 12 apostles, and now he's an old man. But John is saying, I knew him personally. I was there. And so he writes and speaks with authority, the authority of someone that saw it. I'm reminded of the statement, the man with an experience is never at the mercy of a man with a theory. And that's true. I don't care how great your theory may sound, the man that was there with the experience can say, this is what I saw, this is what happened. And there is authority that is given in that. Now, by looking at Paul and John, it's easy to see their personalities and the personal experiences of these two apostles from their writing styles. They write to us completely, uniquely different. John uses a very simple, direct, mystical approach. Paul uses a complex, argumentative approach. He's reasoning with us. He's giving us all this information and revelation to convince us. So they write completely, uniquely different. And when you look at it and read it, it's beautiful. This is what makes their writings so genuine and authentic. See, it's one of the things that has happened to me through the years. When I was a boy preacher, I preached like a boy. When I was a young man, I preached like a young man. When I became middle-aged, I preached like someone middle-aged. Now, I speak like a senior, someone that once was young and now I'm old. But I've never seen the righteous forsaken or God's seed begging for bread. See, you're speaking out of your personal experience. And Paul can talk about his revelation. He can talk about Jesus appearing to him. But John said, I was there when he was there. I saw it. And it makes it so real to us. How I thank God for that. Because he doesn't have anything to prove. No, he was there. This was his experience. And so it's wonderful to watch this man that Jesus called him a son of thunder, being transformed into the apostle of love. What a transformation. That this man that was prejudiced, this man that was just as human as any of us. He was the youngest of them, and yet he got the closest to Jesus. I look at John and with nothing but respect and admiration, because I don't think I could ever do that. That's just not my personality. I'm more like Simon Peter. Give me an assignment and I'll go chasing it. I'll run after it. John's a little more cautious. Before he runs into the open tomb, he sticks his head in and looks around, and Peter comes running up. He doesn't stop for anything. He just charges on in. That's my personality. John, I respect John because he could get so close to Jesus that he's the only one that could say, I laid my head on his chest. I heard his heartbeat. Not many people can do that. Not many people can say that. I certainly can't. Even though I've been close to Jesus, I can never say I laid my head on his chest because that's just not my personality. I wish I was more like John, more like the gentleman that he was. But to see, he became known as the Apostle of Love. And we'll discuss that in our next lessons. The Apostle of Love. What a transformation that this young man that was known for his quick temper, son of thunder, and yet Jesus transformed him and changed him into the Apostle of Love. And so I challenge you, my friend. I challenge you. What is it that Christ wants to do within your life? What is it that he's wanting to accomplish within you? I know one thing. He's not going to leave you the way you are. He will change you. He will make you what he designed you to be. He will transform you into whatever his ministry is in your life. None of us are accidents. No. God designed us with purpose. He gave us a destiny. Thank God John fulfilled it. John became the Apostle of Love. And if he can do it, then you and I can do it. And so I challenge you, and this is going to be a wonderful study, the book of 1 John. I challenge you as we follow the Apostle of Love, become what Jesus intends for you to be.